you were speaking about it a lot, and I watched your video on your experience with incels on the internet, the ones who took your picture and then mentioned a bunch of comments. And I wanted to start by asking you, um, basically, what you would consider a racist act or a racist statement against a person, and what you would not. Because I understood that you were saying, you explained that you don't think that those the ones who made racist remarks or remarks about your race were inherently racist. They were just doing it out of well, either frustration or just trying to say the meanest thing that they could, but inherently they're not racist. So that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and I must admit it did me as well, because there is a group of individuals, especially conservative Americans, who try to downplay racism because they want to have this. They want to avoid being a victim of something so badly, because being a victim is not a good thing and it makes you look bad. So they want to avoid it so to the extreme, where now, even if something horrible is happening or something very racist is happening, they would rather present it as, well, it's not that bad. It's not racist and everything. And hey, other people are doing that too. I think you can even think of Candace Owens as an example. She does that a lot, where someone will do something very racist and she will kind of try to downplay it so that we seem like the tough guys. Oh no, I'm not as sensitive as the others. I'm not as sensitive as those other Black people, or I'm not as sensitive as people on the left. But when you were explaining that you did not think that those people were inherently racist, I was wondering what you would then consider as racist, because these people were literally saying that, well, calling you racist insults. And I just didn't understand. I kind of wanted to just understand your reasoning behind that, if you might explain it.
Yeah, sure. Well, I need to consider, I think people have a very skewed misconception of what an insult is. Typically, when people think about an insult, they perceive an insult to be this angry, white, 20-odd-year-old man in his mom's basement. That doesn't represent the demographic of incels accurately at all. Incels are actually predominantly South Asians living in the West and Black men living in the West. Not so much white individuals at all, actually. And also when it comes to...
I just wanted to know, is there like sorry, just a story. No, you don't have to mention the details, but is there like where did you hear that? Like, did you get that info from? That it's Black and South Asians?
Yeah, I can link you the studies. The most comprehensive study was done in 2022, basically analyzing over, I think, 3 million posts over the span of about 6 months. I don't agree with sort of the recommendations that this study makes based on sort of criminal activity online and sort of this idea of the incel as the sort of new jihad, essentially the new sort of like entity to fear in the West. But in terms of
they did conclude that, they concluded that it's the majority are South Asian and Black.
Yes, or the majority are basically from people of color, groups of people of color. But yes, predominantly sort of based in... The most active are based in Germany and tend to be sort of South Asian, of South Asian descent.
People of color means all sorts of things. But yeah, Karen, continue.
Sorry?
No, I was just saying people of color means, I guess, all sorts. Most of the time, I usually see it as Hispanic people. A lot of Hispanics tend to be. But please carry on. When you mentioned Black, I was surprised because in America, for example, there are very few Black people.
Well, the individual who basically runs the Twitter account and also is, I think, one of the head moderators on the main incel forum is a Black man. Everybody thinks that he's a white man who just hates everyone, but he's a Black man. He's actually... he's okay talking to me. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about incels that don't actually represent why a lot of people are incels. And ultimately, when it comes to the most vocal people on incel forums. There's basically sort of power users who are essentially a handful of users, literally a handful. About 6 users make roughly, I would say it's about, if I can just remember off the top of my head, about 70 to 80% of all the posts on these forums. And they spend on average 8 hours. These 6 users spend 8 hours a day on these forums posting. So to actually then say that, you know, incels are inherently racist is a complete, it's based on nothing except the stereotype of the incel as an angry white man. Most incels are actually left-wing in terms of the philosophy that underlies a lot of inceldom, especially their critique of modern society. It is inherently left-leaning, sort of quite even bordering on sort of socialism in some areas. So that's very interesting. So
yeah, the anti-feminist part. Well, the incels that are anti-feminist, I don't know if that's left-leaning, but that I don't know what makes
to be fair, throughout history and even contemporarily, most left thinking is quite woman hating, or at least doesn't care about women in the slightest. So I don't think that really sort of warrants sort of much sort of comparison. I think that is more of a societal thing rather than it being a political thing. The left is just as prone to misogyny and woman hating and bashing as the right
of course,
is,
yes.
really.
No,
so I
absolutely.
don't sort of see that as necessarily the political thing in the same way. But yes, I think when it comes to the reality of these forums, based on who's posting, which tend to be sort of a handful of people, even the people who are calling me the most abhorrent things, were the people who are the most vocal, who have the most to say, who basically spew out buzzwords that are just spewed out about particular, mainly aspects of themselves which they hate, or aspects of themselves which they see as holding them back, such as the fact that they are Black, and therefore, because they are a Black man in a predominantly white Western context, that they are at an inherent disadvantage. They then look at me as a Black woman who should be at a disadvantage, who should be everything, basically insert what they call me, that I get likes on dating apps when they don't. And that's because they're Black. And even though I am Black and I'm a Shibu and I'm a this, I'm a that, I still get likes. So, you know, women really can't be involuntarily celibate. They can't have problems in dating. It's a complete fabrication and a myth. And to be fair, this idea that women such as myself, this idea that women can't be femcells is not actually an incel view. This is a socially wide view. Men in general don't think that women can have problems when it comes to dating. It's just that incels tend to exacerbate, or at least present this far more flamboyantly than does the mainstream society. So I still like hold by that. I really do not think that incels are predominantly racist. I do not think that these individuals who were making these claims were inherently racist, based on the age of most of the power users and most of the not even men, but boys who are doing the most posting. Their average age is between 16 and 18. These are children, just really stupid, terribly socialized boys, and most will grow out of it. The majority of incels do ascend. The majority of accounts on these forums are inactive. And most people who go on these forums are observing. For how long or for what reasons, nobody actually knows, because they don't actually post. So to then say that because you are on these forums or because you're using these forums, you don't say anything, but because there are 16-year-old boys who are just spewing the most vile rhetoric out there, that therefore, by mere indirect association, you are racist. I think that's just as ill-informed as the kinds of information that some of these incels put out there about sort of how the world works, and sort of about there being no hope for young, predominantly ethnic men in the West. So stand by that.
Yeah.
I definitely, there is no evidence to in any way suggest to me, and based on interviews that I've had with incels, there's no evidence that suggests that incels are that sort of your generic, actual, real incel is racist. Yeah.
So yeah, no, thank you for that. The actually that's actually exactly what I noticed in the comments, and also with another guy I believe that interviewed you. I think that you're answering a different question from what most people were actually concerned about. They weren't actually saying that incels are inherently racist, and I don't know a lot of people who actually think that, or they didn't see our comments. They were talking about the fact that what they said. You said that what they said did not make them inherently racist. You repeated that now. Them
Yeah, I
as
don't think it
individuals,
does.
the ones who, yeah. So that's what I'm talking about. I personally, I've never said that either. I don't say that all incels are inherently racist or anything. I think that there may be a way of pipeline, as like people like to say, where some people, they feel disenfranchised, they feel marginalized, they feel abandoned by society, then they find the only people who say that they will help them and care about them, even when they don't, and then that leads them to adopting certain ideas about other things, and that can maybe lead them to be racist. But that's not what I'm. So we're talking about the comments that were the specific racist comments that were made. Now, calling someone a racial slur and specifically targeting what they look like, their race, is very different from anything else. You could have an argument between Obama and Trump, for example. Trump can call him an idiot. Trump can call Obama an idiot. He can call him a traitor. He can call him all sorts of horrible things. But then, if none of those things have to do with his race. As soon as he mentions anything that has to do with his race, such as a slur or anything like, oh well, you're inherently uncivilized because of your race, that's when it becomes racial, and that's when it becomes a racist comment. Now, that's what people were saying, and even I saw this even in the comment section, and even when I was watching it, I was like, I think that you may be missing what we're actually going after, because we're saying that those comments. People don't generally make those comments unless they have a problem with the race of the individual that is speaking. If it was an Asian person and then they mention all sorts of evil things, but they didn't mention a single thing about single Asian slur, like, oh no, anything about their eyes or whatever, then nobody would ever say anything about that they're being racist. No. The same thing with Jews, the same thing with blacks. Nobody would have called them racist if they didn't use racial slurs. Now, saying that, well, I don't think that they're racist, despite the fact that they went deep with the racial slurs. That's what people were concerned about, and that's what I'm also thinking about. Because if you say that, well, that doesn't make them racist, then what does, is my question. Because it's like, yeah.
No, I think context is everything. I think context is really crucial with that. These individuals, I would bet my life they would never dream of saying such things to my face or in person, or if we were having an actual conversation. They were saying
But then
this in
what
a
does that
forum.
change? Yeah, because
They
I'm
were
thinking,
sorry,
somebody
can I just
saying
finish?
some.
Can I just
Oh
finish
yeah,
what
yeah,
I was
no
saying?
problem.
Yeah, they were saying this in the context of a forum in which basically to say the most crudest, most horrible things about a woman is what ultimately gets you a sense of validation and a sense of importance in this very isolated sort of little community where they don't want outsiders, they don't want anybody who isn't them, who isn't an approved sort of member of the pack. It's basically sort of the most toxic definition of a tribe is essentially what this forum is. And they knew that I was there, that I was lurking there because of everything that I put in my video. And so the best way to scare off somebody who you don't want there is to be as horrible and as vile as you can to them. That was the point of the things that they were saying to me, because what they were saying were just the basic buzzwords and keywords that incels use about not just woman, like ethnic woman, but about themselves. They use the most horrible terms to refer to themselves. It's a lot of real, quite disturbing self-hate, insofar as skin color and the condition of modern society with regards to their skin color and dating is concerned. And there was a lot of, it was ultimately fueled by real anger at the sense of injustice that is that if they were just a woman like me, that it would be so easy for them, and that in their minds is the reason why nobody likes them, nobody wants to date them. I mean, that obviously is not the case, but based on the demographics and based on some of these users who are children, it's it isn't so much fueled by hate of my race as it is by hate of my sex. And that is seen as the ultimate way to get to me, because it's the most obvious thing. Everything to do with incels is about how you look and your appearance. And the most obvious thing about me, inevitably, is that I'm a woman, but also that, I'm not a Stacey, which is like a hot white woman. I'm a Black woman. And so that is the way to try and get at me. And I mean, with incels, it is a lot of the hate, a lot of the anger is very much a shield and a way to merely self-fulfill this prophecy, which they see themselves as being victims of, this prophecy that they will be alone and celibate for the rest of their lives, that nobody will ever love them, nobody will ever care about them, and that this is their existence and their state. And they've created an entire philosophy, an entire sense of meaning around this identity, which gives them a sense of meaning in their seemingly meaningless lives. And so when a woman comes along and makes a video about them and about their idea of how they look and says, actually, I can empathize with that, and actually I go through some of the same issues that you go through, that completely destroys the integrity of the entire philosophy that they've built their entire lives on. It's like somebody basically proving to Christians that God doesn't exist. I mean, what you do in those cases is you go after that which is defying your entire belief system as hard as you can in order to get rid of it and make sure that it just doesn't in any way invalidate your sense of being. And so that's what I ultimately saw it as. I don't think it is possible to actually hold a lot of these incels to the same sort of social standards and decorum, not insofar as infantilizing them, but insofar as appreciating that disproportionately they are incredibly autistic, severely autistic, have mental health issues that are not addressed by any medication, by psychologists, by therapists at all. And so these are individuals who are not at all the norm insofar as social interactions and insofar as their mental stability is concerned. Not saying that they are unsafe. Like, I don't think that they're going to mass shoot or do anything bad or anything, but in terms of their own sense of self-worth and their own susceptibility to sort of their own self-harm, mentally and also physically, but their own well-being is sort of very disproportionately not good. And so when an incel calls me a she-boon, it's not going to hit me at all as hard, or is not going to I'm not going to see it as this individual's being racist to me in the same way that I would see sort of a very civil, a very sociable, a very sort of immersed, healthy, well-adjusted man on the internet who, for instance, last week I got called like a coon by some guy online. This is a man just based on his Twitter who's like very sociable, traveling the world, based in Kenya, and is like a businessman, entrepreneur, has a wife, living his best life, everything. That's going to hit very differently to sort of an incel on one of these forums based on everything that he represents saying that. I think when it comes to racism, it's not so simple as it isn't so simple as just somebody says something racist to you and therefore they are racist or that's a racist thing. I think we need to see why is somebody saying this to me? Why is somebody resorting to this? Where does this come from? Does this actually stem from a place of real hatred for Black people, real hatred for whatever people? Or is this somebody who has actual severe problems that society is not willing to even acknowledge and just is ignoring, and this is their way of trying to be seen for who they are, because that's ultimately what everybody wants, but specifically incels. And I think as a group, they are the most unseen group of people who are the group that is yelling out for the world to see them. And ultimately what my video was interpreted as, fairly or not, by incels, was me failing to see them and failing to see that I, as a woman, am in a completely different situation to them, that is not comparable. And therefore, the one thing which they want, which is empathy, is the one thing that nobody can give them. So they sort of are in a bind. I mean, the incel philosophy is just inherently contradictory and makes absolutely no sense when you actually put it on paper. But it gives these individuals, these incredibly autistic individuals, a lot of meaning. And I can rationalize and understand that. So as I said, these individuals who said these things, I don't think that they are racist. It definitely,
or that it was
given
a
all of
racist
that
thing to say,
context. Sorry?
or that what they said was racist. You said earlier that it doesn't make them racist, and it doesn't make what they said racist. So even what they said wasn't racist.
I think what they said, I think what they said, these are like racial, like racist terms, obviously. But I think that in terms of why it was said because it was said for all the reasons that I've just said. I don't think it was said because they actually sort of have like some kind of like internal like hatred of Black people and just want to see like the end of blackness.
It's not
or,
hatred.
You know. So
it's not hatred, because in that same video that you put up, you actually explained to them, you actually explained some of the philosophies that I had no idea even existed about these forums. You mentioned that some of them kind of grade different races. These incel groups, they grade different races according to their beauty. So obviously they put white people at the top, then they start kind of going down, and Black people are at the bottom. And
yeah, but
that's
what's
a little
interesting
more.
about this, sorry to interrupt you, but what's interesting about this is that
Mhm.
the thing with incels is that actually when it comes to their analysis or their philosophy of how modern society works, it's actually very accurate. Like based on when you look at the statistics and the demographics of dating apps, that is basically exactly what is presented, that white individuals, specifically white women and Asian, East Asian women are the most desirable, and Black women, actually Black women out of like all of men and women actually have the worst time on dating apps. And so what incels are saying is that rather than in dating apps, and I would say based on personal experience in real life, but ultimately what incels are saying is that they see all these things which everybody else in society pretends isn't there, and it's like an open secret about things. Like, you know, when I get rejected by men, I'm not going to like say like, oh, I know, even though I know why, you know, I'm not going to say why in a lot of cases, but it's sort of like an open secret that everybody lives with, and we just go on with our merry days in our lives. Incels are saying, actually, no, this is disproportionately affecting us. This is the reason in our minds why we aren't getting dates, why women don't want to sleep with us. And therefore, we're going to create an entire philosophy about this, and we're going to actually explain this and rationalize it. And they do a very sort of OCD thing about it, which is ultimately like sort of like looks maxing and all these sorts of things, and or being black pilled because you can't actually do anything about it. So it's sort of what they are doing isn't, I wouldn't say that this in any way is equivalent to sort of eugenics or sort of race theorizing. that is actually very racist and very much based in an entire philosophy about there being a superior race that must, conquer all, and that there's sort of this entire diatribe of this philosophy about sort of how to sort of there's like sort of this whole like sort of religiosity around it. This is far more.
And yet when they look smacks, sorry, just a point there, just I don't miss it. And yet when they look smacks, they try to make themselves appear with more European features. So it is a matter of superiority. It's like a thing of it's a thing of what, because if you say that no, it's not that I don't. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, with most looks maxing, I mean, most incels don't believe in looks maxing, because most looks maxing is mainly the examples that you see and that are given are of white men looks maxing. Okay. Most incels think that looks maxing is just like, it's like makeup, like how women wear makeup. It's you're deluding yourselves. It's deception. It's not real. And that there's actually really no hope in doing that, because at the end of the day, you're still going to be Black. You're still going to be Asian. And so, it's really not going to make any difference. So most are not positive about this. Looks maxing is far more like a red pill sort of thing than it is sort of like the more, I would say, sort of the more like sort of authentic incels who tend to be far more black pilled than that, who don't see looks maxing as actually in any way doing anything to better their lives.
So the reason I just smirked at the dating apps example is just because, well, that may be one metric of checking it, and I don't disagree that this has been shown many times. I've never been on a dating app, but I have seen someone else talk about it, and they show the statistics of positive and negative responses to and interactions. And yes, you are absolutely right. According to, I think, I don't even know the names of Cupid, something.
Yeah,
Cupid.
okay, Cupid,
They showed that a lot of positive interaction goes into white and actually Asian women more than anybody else, and then black men and black women actually receive very little. But then black men don't. Many black men don't actually go for other black women. They go for other races. So they showed a bunch of things. But the reason I smirked at that was just because of Pornhub. They have their own statistics, and they kind of show, well, the fetishization, I suppose you would call it that. But they show that ebony and Latino, I suppose, porn is the most viewed in the United States, which is a predominantly black country. On the surface, they will call all these things, and in their bedroom alone, they'll just, masturbate to mostly ebony stuff. At some point, there was a rise in Asian stuff, especially because the number one search thing, I believe, is still hentai, because people are strange, but also because that's their thing. But then when it comes to real people in a predominantly white country, you still have people searching more for that. But then that's not really the case. I think that it does reflect how people do interact, but I think that in some cases it reflects also stereotypes and such that people do have when it comes to that. I don't think that I think that a lot of people have certain stereotypes that they wouldn't even give some people a chance. I know this because it works in both ways. For some Asians, a lot of white men actually are just interested in Asians because they watch anime, to be honest. And a lot of tourists, white tourists who have gone, and it's not me saying, a lot of them, they've given their reason as, I love anime. That's how I knew about Japan. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't even have heard of it. And, they go into those prostitution, the red light districts. And, it's a bit of a fetishization of it. While as with Black people, I'm just saying that this may influence the reasons as to why it may be the case that people get less interactions, is because also of what is portrayed to people. Remember that a lot of people live very segregatedly, if that's a word. They don't know a lot of people that don't look like them. When I was in the States, I was in Utah, and over there, it sometimes took weeks for me to see another Black person. There are a bunch of Mexicans, but I can't tell the difference between Mexicans and white people, to be very honest. And it's a place where basically you will only the only interaction and the only not even interaction, the only ideas that you have of certain people is through what you watch, and that goes for whether it's good or bad. So that's why there was also this whole movement of, why is the why is the black person always the criminal? Why is the black person always the one who's tap dancing and acting stupid on TV and stuff? Because, and I've even had that where people literally think that, hey, you tell us a joke, because they think that the only black person that they either watch or look up to is Chris Rock. And then suddenly they think that, hey, all black people are jokers, or the only black people that they see are dangerous people, and that's why they're so afraid. And I've seen that myself, and that's why it was quite an eye-opening experience, because here in South Africa, it's a predominantly black country, but now going into a place where people are literally asking me like the weirdest questions about Africa and stuff. But what I'm saying is that it does influence that. What we're going back to the things though. Whether it's racist or not, is that I don't particularly see the difference in 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 that, because they're not kind of countering it or anything. They were not saying it as these are just the facts of life. They were saying it as their actual opinion of how they view it. They were the way, at least the info that you presented was that no, like um these, like you can even they even show like different facial features, like yeah, you can even see that the nose looks a certain way, and then the ears. And maybe it does have to do with the fact that they were just trying to show that hey, people who look this way kind of get negative press, and they're just showing the reality of it. But these are ideas that they themselves also hold to. It's not something that they're trying to counter or anything like that. And I guess for me, for to say that hey, these people sorry, to say that no, it's not racist for them to spew out these things because of their context. I want to just address that. I do get what you're saying, because it is true that context does matter in everything. If they're saying it just because they're either repeating something that they've heard, or they're just trying to throw the things that they think will hurt you the most, but they don't really believe that themselves, that's one thing that would be true. But of all the things that, with all the evidence that has been, that even you showed in the video, I am not convinced that they would have said those things if they didn't think that. It's not a matter of, oh well, they just hate. They hate the fact that I'm a woman there and everything, and I'm trying to kind of get in on their clique, and they have their own problems and stuff, and they're autistic. Those things are true, but the fact that they addressed a very particular part, to say that no, that's not a racist act, it's just them saying things. Firstly, it's I with the rare cases, and I do agree that it is rare that incels go out and shoot people. It doesn't happen as often as other types of shootings, but it does happen. And in some rare cases where they have mentioned that, a lot of it was racially motivated. That other whack job, the one with the friggin' I'm the most handsome. I don't even keep up with their names, but the one who was who basically was obsessed with white women. Um, he once made a comment saying that he once saw a blonde with a dark-skinned Mexican fella, and it's kind of like you see this all over. And then in his comment section of the people who were following him, the other incels who were following him, it was the exact same thing. It was the norm that they're colorists, they are racist, and that they think that they do believe that some races are superior to others when it comes to looks, just because of the way things are. And by the way, dating apps, it may be the case, but it's not necessarily because people think that, oh, this person is not attractive or whatever, that they do not interact with each other. That's why dating apps, I don't think, is the best metric to do these things. It's most people usually date within their own racial group, if you want to call it that, usually because they grow up around their own racial group. They only interact with people in their own racial group. In America, it's more common to have interracial marriages because, well, there is a lot of intermingling. Here in South Africa, things are so segregated that ask a person if, unless you go to Johannesburg or one of those places where it's really, the classes tend to be a bit closer to each other. Then you might find some interracial relations. But the majority of people in South Africa marry within or interact and date within their own groups simply because it is very difficult to even meet people from elsewhere. It's been like that since forever. It's still very segregated. Those are the reasons as to why. Putting it that, oh, it's because they're more beautiful objectively, which is a debate of its own, doesn't make sense. And that's why when you're saying that, hey, no, these are not tied into eugenics or things which are wrong. I'm glad that you think they're wrong, but they're not tied to those. They are, because they are taking something, they're misguidedly taking, and maybe it's not something that they intended to do, but they are mistaking some statistics about interactions and so on, and then placing it on some races are just better than others and some are just worse. But my main thing there was just about the comments. I personally think that if they wanted to make comments about anything else, regardless of how autistic, because in reality, just because a person has a disability or whatever, it doesn't mean that it doesn't what they said, not what they said. Called a person, if I
Yeah, I mean, I've
insulted
never said
a person,
that, but
yeah,
yeah.
I said what?
I mean, I never
Sorry.
said that. I never sort of said that autism is an excuse. Everything that I was sort of giving was an explanation for why I think the way that I think
They
about
would,
it.
but then that led you to the conclusion that those points make it not racist. So,
No, no, I never said that because they're autistic, they're not racist. I was just, that was an explanation as to why I personally came to the conclusion about them calling me those things. What informed me, all the things, which wasn't just the autism, but just based on like the entirety, the very complex network of information about incels out there, why they say the things that they say,
no, I
why they
understand
said
that.
the things
I
that
just
they
don't
said
think that
about me.
yeah, I understand that. It's just that I think that there's a level of mitigation where, oh, well, this person cannot have full responsibility over it. And I don't know, I'm not the person to draw that line, but I do think that, the autistic part
Yeah, I
about
never
it, yeah,
said that
it
they
may
don't
be an
have
explanation.
responsibility over what they say. I never said that. I never said that they're not responsible
Well,
for what they
yeah.
said. I am just saying that like they are
Mm.
entirely responsible. Everybody's responsible for what they say. But I'm not going to place the label that these individuals are racist on them for
No, what
what
they
they
said.
said.
Whether they're racist or not, like, they have prejudice against black people. No, I'm talking about their statements. I'm talking about if what they said, specifically the racist comments, if that was racist. We're literally saying racist comments are not racist. I'm talking about the comments. I'm not talking about
Oh
the
no, no,
individuals.
I'm not saying that race. I never said that racist comments are not racist. I'm saying that these
But you did. You
specific
said that.
comments. No, no, no.
Yeah.
I'm speaking about this
Mhm.
instance. This isn't like a whole
Yeah.
thing about like racism or like what is racist or isn't,
Of
because
course. Of
that's
course. Yeah.
everything is so idiosyncratic and so specific to every instance. I'm saying that this
Hmm.
particular instance, based on my
Hmm.
particular interactions with these individuals, based on what they particularly did to me and have since
Hmm.
then like sent to me and how they interact
Hmm.
with me, that I have concluded based on this, it's got nothing to do with anything else, it's got nothing to do
Of
with
course.
anybody
It's just
else,
that. Yeah.
that this is not, that I do not believe that these people are racist or that this was inherently a racist thing.
Racist act. The only problem with that is that the only reason, and I will conclude this topic, but the only reason that I bring this up and that it can be a problem is because by spreading that and the idea that their action was not racist, because it's actually really not about I'm not being any hostile or anything, but it's not particularly about you in particular. It's about the greater scheme of things. If what they said, we say
But
that
it
what they said
isn't.
in that particular context.
That's a
If
problem.
what they,
That's the problem with all of this. Sorry, but
no, I just want,
this is
if
a
I can
problem that
explain
I
it.
do find with like this whole thing
If
about racism, that it
if I
all
can just say,
becomes,
if I can
it
just
becomes a
finish.
whole thing where it's like
No,
about
I'm trying.
everything
No,
else
I'm
that
saying
isn't
this.
actually pertaining to what I'm
I'm
actually
saying
talking
this.
about.
If another person was, I'm saying this. If another person was in a similar position, and they were Black, and they were also said those things. And then, and it was in the explanations that you've given for why those particular comments under that particular context, and um, under all of that, is not racist because of the fact that these are very young, impressionable, autistic people who are saying it for a very specific reason to get you off the site. If we say that that is not that those statements were not racist because of those reasons, what the only reason I say it's on the greater scheme of things it affects other people is because then people can use that excuse to do the same thing to others. The reason, that's why I'm not really arguing with you in particular. I'm arguing with the idea and the reasons that you're giving as to why they were not racist. Of course, I don't think that I understand that. I'm glad that you cleared up that you said that you don't think that they don't have responsibility. Yes, and I wasn't saying that because I think that you did. And also on my side, I'm not saying that context doesn't matter or that those things don't say anything. Prove don't matter in this situation. But what I am saying is that in situations like this where a person, despite all that context, had to specifically go and target the person's race, in this case your race, because they were trying to get you away and everything, that is a racist act. I'm not saying even if the rest of their days they're not racist. And also, when you say that they wouldn't say that to your face, it's actually the other way. Most people don't say racist things to people's faces. Most of the racist things that people say to each other are online. They're not. It's in fact the anonymity that they show, that what they're actually thinking inside, that they're showing on the outside. You repeated it a bunch of times, but I really just didn't get the idea that, well, they wouldn't say it to my face. No one does it. Who wants to get punched in the face? They're not going to say a racist thing to you. They would rather say it when they can express their true feelings without any repercussions because they're being anonymous. If I
would
really
contend
okay,
that.
so you
I
think
don't
that
agree with that.
would you say
Based
that
on,
most people that are truly racist would rather show it physically or online?
yes, in person. I mean, I think that
Okay.
most. Well, yeah. I mean,
I
if
don't think
you
so. I
have
think that most people actually hide their I don't think most people call I don't think that
people don't hide their
Most
beliefs.
Americans.
No, most people do not. You
Do you
don't
think
hide
that
your
most
beliefs.
Americans are no, but I mean you do in person if you don't want to
No, you
get
don't.
physically attacked.
Why
Do you
would
think
you
that most
hide your
people
why
would
would you
be
hide your beliefs when you believe something
oh
wholeheartedly? Nick Fuentes, he doesn't hide his beliefs. He
yes.
believes in his
That is
beliefs.
literally
Why on earth would he hide them? Because he is actually just a
yeah, in
racist
person. Hide
person.
them in
So
hide them in person. Hide them in
no, he doesn't
person. A
hide them in
person
person. He's very
That's what I'm
open
saying.
about them.
That's what I'm saying. Most people hide them in person. A person that
No, I'm
is
saying in
racist on the
person, he
street,
doesn't hide his
can
beliefs.
I'm agreeing with you. He doesn't hide it. I mean, he doesn't hide it in person. Most people, I'm saying, do. What I'm saying, however, is that because if you look at
But
the
then how
most
if
racist thing, may I just complete my sentence? If most people who say racist things, they do not say it in person. A lot of people do not. Americans do not call Black people slurs in person. Most of those insults are found when they have a level of anonymity or when they are surrounded by other groups of people who are doing that where they can feel protected. An individual going out and doing that, that's actually quite rare. And especially when it's a leader of something, like Nick Fuentes, for example, leading out to do that. All those people behind him, those people usually cover their faces when they're going through rallies, even those Proud Boys and whatever. It's usually the leader that does that, but they don't do it in person because they are afraid of the repercussions that it will bring. But saying them something online where you have the benefit of anonymity is where people actually do show their things that they don't think will be accepted in society. If I, for example, was racist towards Asians and everything, I would not have the same amount of courage, and a lot of people wouldn't, to go to a, a Chinese person or a group of Chinese people and actually say those racial things to them in person. I would rather say it online because I can get my frustration out, and yet I do not face any serious repercussions. So that's what I'm saying. That saying that they wouldn't say it to my face online, to my face, it doesn't make any sense because most people don't say it to your face physically. Unless in your experience, most of the racism that you've experienced was face to face, or was it
yes,
online?
that's the thing. Most I think the issue with this entire argument that is very popular at the moment is that essentially it's like fighting with a ghost, because how do you know that somebody's racist? How do you know when they don't like say these things? Like, you're just it's like, basically at the essence of it is like assuming. You're just like assuming things. It's like how everybody assumes
What?
things about incels,
No,
but
no,
what
like
they
we're not
are.
assuming, we're not assuming based on what they're saying. They're literally, if they're literally calling a person the N-word, um, what is there to be assumed? They are literally saying something that is racially insulting. What's the assumption? What's the assumption that, where's the assumption there? And another thing
What?
is
So you,
also, yeah.
no, no, no. Go ahead.
And the other thing about in person, did you say that most of the racism that you've experienced has been physical, like to your face, or has it been
Yes,
online?
to my face. Yes, definitely.
Okay, then that's yeah.
Like
Then I
in
think
real
that
life, in the real world,
yeah, yeah,
where
yeah, 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 yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But you've also experienced a lot of racism in online, of course, right? Well,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
In
Well, I
that
guess
case, you've
like sort of
experienced.
like people
I'm
saying
not even
horrible
trying to.
things to me, which often pertain
Okay,
to how
yeah,
I look, and
yeah. But
inevitably,
either way,
I think the
no,
nature of
yeah.
the
The only
internet.
yeah.
Yeah, I
No, go
think
ahead.
the nature of the internet, everything on the internet is about, it's like on dating apps. It's all about the picture, it's all about the physical, it's about how you look. And the most obvious thing about people online is basically your race, how you look, those things. Which is why I think sort of a lot of the things that we always are fighting about online have to do with race, have to do with gender, have to do with beauty standards. It's all about how you look. In real life, it's a completely different thing, because in real life, yes, when it comes to like your first interaction with somebody, you're obviously judging them on how they look. But if it comes to like sustaining your interactions with people, it's not about like their brand or how successfully they brand themselves. It is about who they actually are as a person, their values, their dexterity, their smell, even. It's about all these different
Yeah.
things that we don't have any engagement with in the real
I
world.
honestly,
And
that's why I kept on emphasizing that I'm not talking about them as people. I'm talking about their actions. And that's why I kept on referring. I do not care whether their whole ideology or them as a person, like they deep down really do hate black people or anything. I'm talking about their act. The act of, for example, calling someone a slur, a racial slur. I consider that to be racist. Under that context, under the context that we were under and everything that you explained, I still consider that to be racist. They could have said a lot of other things, but they chose to go for the race, for your race. Now, the thing about it is also that saying that I think that we're going far into a direction that is more where you're interested in, oh, the individual, and it doesn't make them, because I think that maybe we have two different ways of seeing what a racist person is. And honestly, I do not really care. I do not really care about that, because a lot that can be a debate for a very uh, that can be a very long debate as to what really makes a person a racist. Are there degrees of being a racist? No. So I'm specifically talking about their action. If, for example, people, you generally, especially leftists, liberals, white liberals, for example, a lot of them do very, very racist things and say very, very racist things. The ones who are advocating SJWs and stuff, you're in a group with them, and then let's say there's only one black person there, and then somebody just feels like, oh, they feel like making a monkey joke or something and insulting the black person who's there. The liberals, not the conservatives or whatever, the liberals. The rest of the time, they'll be like, no, I have black friends. I support Black Lives Matter. I do this and everything. That's why I do not care about calling the person a racist. Maybe because that's going to lead to a debate. I am talking about the action. If at that point, the liberal who's always talking about Black Lives Matter and stuff like that, there's something racist, the action is racist. That's why in this case, I've been trying to lead you back to understanding that I'm referring to the actions and the statements of those incels that were saying that. We're not saying that all incels are racist. We're not saying that those people inherently hate black people or whatever. We're talking about the action that they did. And if you don't agree, I'm just trying to lay down the thing, because I've noticed that a lot of people said that. And when you do address it, because you addressed it once with the other guy, and when you do address that, I feel like you're constantly leaning on the fact that we need to get to know these people better and know what they did. Sure, no problem. Maybe we find that, hey, these people don't actually have a problem with black people. I'm talking about their act. if they don't have a problem with Black people, or if they don't have some vendetta or any feelings of eugenics or whatever against Black people, then it doesn't change the fact that what they said was still racist. That's my whole point. So that's what I
Okay,
was
but
trying to get through.
that's the thing. Like, okay,
Mhm.
so if it's this, say theoretically, I agree with you. Where do we go from there? Like what's the
The reason
point?
why, yeah, the
No.
point
Specifically, can
of
you
us.
answer? Where do we go from there? Like, what's the point? If we both agree and we
Mhm.
say to these insults, okay, like you did this racist
Yeah,
act, then
yeah.
what? What happens?
Well, actually, it would be a very good starting point to explaining why why they would actually bring up the race of a
No,
person
but
when they're
no,
when they're trying to insult them.
no. But
Yes,
specifically to my question,
yes.
what happens? What happens to actually do the thing that we need, which is
Yeah.
communication between us? What happens?
I was literally explaining that is a good starting point of understanding why they said that. If they're the reason why they were targeting your race specifically is because they do believe in some hierarchy of races, then obviously that's where something to be dismantled. We actually talk about, okay, well then if you think that most people think that Black people are ugly just because of the dating interactions and everything, we could go into those kind of conversations. That is a way forward, I think. If it doesn't, if you want a way forward of how to kind of get them from other racist things, like I don't know, shooting up a Black church in some Black state, then it starts with communications about what is leading them to even say such things in the first place. Why would you target a person's race in particular? If it is because you really think there's a hierarchy, then we speak about that. That's the first way forward. Anything that comes after that, if they don't want to listen, if they don't think that, oh, there's no problem with me saying all these racist things, that is up to them. But that is a way forward because obviously these people are misguided. That's something we both
But
agree on.
forward
I
to
think that these
what?
people are,
What are we
I'm sorry.
moving forward towards?
Well, for starters, not having them not have such negative opinions of certain groups of people that cannot change the color of their skin.
Okay,
If
but
they
like how?
understand, for example, getting a person to realize that, hey, saying something like, saying something that they did not think was racist and convincing them that, oh, what you said was actually racist. Obviously, it starts by explaining to them what it is, because obviously nobody wants to be insulted. So the way that what we're trying
Okay,
to
but with
get to
insults
is people not
specifically,
insulting each other.
forward to what?
Yeah.
What does
If
this move forward to for them? What benefit does this
um,
do to their situation?
why do you keep referring to the situation? The only
No,
reason I'm
because this
mentioning
is a
the insult, it could
specific.
have
Because
been,
remember, I'm talking about this is
yeah.
all about a
Mhm.
specific community of
Yes,
people,
and yeah, but
specifically
I'm referring.
me and my
Mhm.
thing. This is
So are you saying that you want a solution for them to get dates or to not be incels anymore? I'm speaking about them not being racist anymore or not saying racist things anymore. If
well,
you're
I
talking
don't believe
about
that they're
them getting,
racist.
yeah, I'm saying that I'm trying to get them from saying racist things. That's what I'm moving towards.
Yeah,
If you're saying that you're moving towards, if you're saying that you're moving towards them not being incels anymore instead of involuntarily celibate, that's something else. That's not my goal.
yeah, no, I'm not talking about. What I'm saying is that
Mhm.
where do we actually get? Like, ultimately, these are just people who are being horrible because the world is horrible to them, and they're just in this
Okay.
perpetual state of just being horrible people. And fine, they're going to be horrible. And you know what? Like,
Mhm.
considering the way that their minds work and the issues that they have, like society's let down in souls, like let down men generally, like very badly. And well, it's letting down everybody, but like specifically in this case, it's let down men very badly, and specifically these men. And in terms of their sense of hopelessness, like if they're going to be horrible, then I can sort of understand. I can understand why they are being so horrible based on how they see the world. But ultimately,
So
like,
can
where do we
I, but
get?
I will
Like,
not justify it.
for
Mhm.
instance, with me, they said these things to me. Like, surely I'm the most important person because this is what they were saying to me. If I say that didn't cause me offense, like, whatever, I'm going to
Mhm.
go on with my life and I'm going to still
Mhm.
try to interact with these people, try to show them through my own actions that it's possible for us to talk, for us to empathize with each other. why am I going to keep harking on about like this racist act when actually, you know, we've moved forward from that. This happened like last year. Like we've moved forward from this. I'm having interactions with incels, researching incels, talking to incels, and it's actually been very eye-opening and enlightening for me and for them that they can actually talk to me, and that, hello, there's a Black woman who's actually fine talking to me, and that we can actually like laugh and we can actually have interactions. So that is something. People make mistakes, people say stupid things throughout their lives, and
Yeah, I
ultimately the
just
way
want
that
to
we
point
move
out
forward,
there. I just want to
ultimately,
point
sorry,
out there
sorry,
that
sorry, sorry,
the
sorry,
I
sorry.
just
And
I just
sorry,
want to
the way
point
that
out
we,
that the
sorry,
people that you were speaking
excuse me,
to,
can I just quickly just finish
yeah,
what I was saying?
all right,
Ultimately, the essence of how humans work, broadly speaking, the only way that we can actually move forward as people is through talking to each other and through forgiveness. Forgiveness enables us to start again, to start from the beginning of something. And so, yeah, it didn't mean anything to me. That specific thing that happened to me, it didn't affect me in the way because of the very important
great.
and crucial context. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. I've moved on.
That's always, yeah, that's again, we're speaking my argument throughout this entire thing is not about, it's not honestly about how it affects you. It's about whether what they said or not was racist. That's what I keep going back to. If you
And
say that
I
what they
said I
said,
didn't find it racist.
yeah, that's what I'm disagreeing with. Obviously, if you still believe that, that's on you. I was just showing you the reasons as to why most people, and myself included, do consider what they said to be racist, despite the context that you were talking about. Obviously,
I
if
completely respect. That's the thing.
yeah,
I see you. I see you, and I see that you and other people see it in that way. I see it in a different way. But the thing is that
yeah.
whilst I see you, you don't see me. And so I don't understand what the point of this is,
No, it's not
because
that I don't
ultimately we're
see you.
not. No, you don't
It's
see
not that I
me.
don't.
You don't. And
Well,
it's fine. It's
no,
absolutely fine.
I know I can get the background as to the reasoning as to why. The only reason I'm mentioning this is because this is a talking point and a almost like a justification or defense for people who do actually say racist things. Despite this
No,
context,
I'm not
yes,
justifying
it
that at
has.
all. As it's not,
It.
I'm not justifying this at all. This entire thing has been about me not justifying.
I was actually no. I didn't
Explanation
say that
isn't
you justified.
justification.
No, I didn't say that you justify this. I said that it can be used to justify things
Yeah, but
because
that's
of
other
saying
people's
that.
problem.
Oh,
That's
go
not
ahead.
my problem if other people are going to use something that is very specific, very context specific and personally
Mm,
specific to justify something else that does not in any way pertain to what
mm.
I'm talking about.
Of
I'm
course,
a
of
devout
course.
individualist
So,
in this sense. That's their problem.
of
If they're
course.
going to do that, that's their
So,
issue. It's not mine.
I understand. All right, I understand. All right. So basically, but I wanted to make that clear that by saying, because otherwise saying that hey, this person said these very racially motivated things under this context, of course. Uh, they're young, they're impressionable, they have mental health issues, and they're just trying to get me to go away, saying that, well, those statements were not racist, um, even though they were literally racist statements, is it's very. I just find that to be well, a bit, some in a way, a bit contradictory, actually, that it is. But I don't know if I just hope that you understand where I'm coming from. I'm not saying that all incels are racist, even though there are many who have said, even openly, not just to you, said that. Oh, and I also wanted to add, when I was trying to interrupt you, and I apologize for that, I was actually going to add that the, sorry, just hope it doesn't leave me. Oh, yeah, that the people that you were speaking to now, the incels that you're speaking to now, are not the same incels that you were. Well, we don't know, but there are, like you said, there is a very big variety of incels. Some of them may be racist, some of them are not. That's why I
I
said
mean,
it's
two of
not
them were the
inceldom.
two men who said the things
Uh,
to me. So
they were sorry. They were what? Two of them were what?
two insults I have spoken to were the individuals who featured in my videos who called me things like Shibu and everything.
Mm. Oh well, that's fine. Um, I was going to. I was going to actually that one of the things that you said was what actually led me to some comments that I actually saved here that were very interesting. But it's not from your channel; it's from somebody else's channel because it led to a a very interesting conversation that people are having about this, and that is interracial relations and stuff. But one thing that was not addressed before we get, I just wanted to mention that point to conclude. When you were asking where do we go from here, I don't know if you were asking about a solution to the whole thing, or if there's a way forward from what I was trying to achieve. Because what I was trying to achieve was people not people realizing that what they are saying is actually racist. And I'm pretty sure that if I'm on the belief that they know that what they're saying is racist, you obviously are not. But then my solution was regarding that. It was, if you speak to them regarding hey, this thing that you're actually saying, it's not a thing about them, her being a woman or whatever. It is actually racist, and people saying that, well, that's not racist, I disagree with them. uh, my way forward was discussing why they think it's race, why they would say that, what motivated them to take a racial attack on something that was not even having to do with that. Most, I would say that if they were attacking you for being a woman, it would make a lot more sense, because they don't believe that women, and not just them, like you said, most people don't believe that women can be incels. That is in the context of this inceldom. Them going toward the racist part or mentioning your race is something very different, because that's what that's the way forward, that what I was trying to progress with, that by speaking and trying to understand why they particularly think why they particularly attack the race. Then we can go from that, and we can already know where it's going to go, because they do believe in hierarchies of beauty, and from then we continue talking. But if you were asking me for a solution on how to fix the incel problem, I don't have one, and I don't. That's not the point of this discussion. I'm not interested in that. I was just trying to illustrate that what
Nobody is,
their
so there we
statements
go.
were. Nobody is what?
I said nobody is. I mean, that's sort of like the point. But
And
yeah,
nobody is what?
interested in the incel thing. So that's sort of
Well,
the
I mean, it's
point
not that
of
they're
it.
not interested.
Which is why you can't demand a group of
Yeah.
people to be interested in the things that society's interested in when nobody gives a fuck about them. So that's sort of like my point, really. So I
Well, I
can't
mean, it
expect
is
them
true,
to
but
care
then.
about racism. I can't expect them to care about like racism
Mhm,
and like their language and how they use language
mhm.
in a society which doesn't give a hoot about their problems. Like it's just it's like a give and take that just isn't there. It's like okay, yeah.
Personally, I can't speak for society, but I can say that personally, the first time that I ever heard about this whole thing, I don't even, the term incel didn't exist at that time. It was from a website that, where it wasn't me, my sister visited it, and she saw people, men and women, not just whatever, who were discussing on a post about how they just couldn't find love, and how many of them consider themselves to be very, very unattractive. They had never been in any sort of relationship. They had never experienced any sort of romantic thing. It wasn't most of. I don't even think most of them even mentioned sex or anything, or anything like that. It was just about having a meaningful relationship with a person that they are romantically attracted to, and they never had that. And most of them that. Then obviously, it was something that actually bothered me for a long time. I was very saddened by that, and I was like, that this is actually great for people to kind of get together and talk about that. But generally, all communities eventually start to form a more toxic side. The thing is that it's not that. I don't know about. I mean, yeah. So for a large part of, I don't live in America, but I'm pretty sure, and by what I see, a lot of Americans demonize incels. They consider, because of a lot of things, but generally it's because of, well, the what we see from them. Honestly, I don't hear about incels very often, but whenever I do hear about incels, it is something that they've done to somebody else. It's not just them. And I'm sure that a large part of it, like you said, is them just kind of trying to find solace with each other. But then it leads to toxicity, and that can be any group, even the classic music people can get very toxic. Oh, you don't know about you got the name of that musician wrong and everything. That is the fifth movement, not the fourth. Blah blah blah. They get very toxic. Every movement or group gets toxic after a time. And for me, it's just, if they're going to, what we see from them is what we're going to get. I have very little interactions or even knowledge about incels and everything. But if they're shooting or people, or they're kind of saying racist things, and I'm not saying all of them, I'm saying the ones who are, if they're doing that and that's the only interaction I get from them, yeah, it's not going to be something that, I can particularly get into. If, for example, I saw that they were actually, calling for help and calling for solutions, then yeah. But then if it's very difficult to try to help people who are literally shooting you or thinking that you are subhuman or whatever. So that's just my side of it. It's not that I just generally don't care. I would wish them happiness and stuff, but it's kind of like, um, you know, don't attack the person that you would want help from. Maybe it's a nice way to start, I suppose.